It was raining the night Emma disappeared. The kind of cold, unrelenting rain that turned streets into mirrors and every reflection into a ghost. I remember because I was standing at my apartment window, watching the storm swallow the city when my phone buzzed. It was a text from her, "I'm coming over. Don't open the door for anyone else." And then a minute later, another one, "If something happens, remember I tried." My pulse quickened. Emma wasn't dramatic. She was the kind of person who laughed quietly, who saved stray cats, who believed every problem could be fixed with coffee and late-night honesty. We'd been best friends since university, and nothing, no distance, no heartbreak, had ever shaken that. Until that night. I typed a reply. "What's wrong?" "Where are you?" But it didn't deliver. The message hung there, unsent, as thunder cracked over the city. By the time I heard the knock on my door, my chest was tight with dread, but when I opened it, no one was there. Only the wind, the hiss of rain, and a small folded note left on my doormat. It was soaked through, but I could still make out the words written in Emma's familiar cursive, "Don't trust him." That was the last thing she ever said to me. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound made me flinch, the elevator's hum, the rattle of the window frame. I called her number a dozen times, left voicemails, texted, even reached out to her coworker, but no one had heard from her. By morning, her phone was off, and the police said I should wait 24 hours. I tried to work, failed. The world felt muffled, as though wrapped in gauze. Every few minutes, I'd glance at my front door, half expecting her to walk in laughing, claiming she'd lost her phone again. Instead, I found something else. While making coffee, I noticed a faint, muddy footprint on my living room floor. Too small to be mine, too clean to be random. It was shaped like the tread of a woman's flat shoe. Emma's size. I froze. She'd been here. I called the police again, reported everything, but they treated it like a misunderstanding. "Maybe she just needed space," one officer said, barely looking up from his notepad. "Space?" Emma was the one who texted me in panic. Who warned me not to open the door for anyone? By evening, I couldn't stand waiting anymore. I went to her apartment. The building manager let me in, sympathetic but cautious. Inside, the place looked frozen in time. A half-eaten croissant on the counter. A mug of tea gone cold. Her phone charger plugged in, empty, but the strangest thing was her laptop. It was open, the screen still glowing. An email draft filled with one unfinished sentence. "I think he found out." No name. No signature. Just that. When I returned home, the city had gone quiet. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under streetlights. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, that maybe Emma had left town suddenly. But deep down, I knew someone had taken her, and whoever it was, she'd known them well enough to be afraid. The next day, a detective named Noah Keller showed up at my door, tall, late 30s, with a guarded kind of calm that felt both reassuring and dangerous. His badge flashed as he introduced himself, and he spoke gently, like he'd already decided I was fragile. "Miss Hart," he said, stepping into my living room. "You were the last person Emma Lewis contacted. Can you walk me through exactly what happened?" I told him everything about the texts, the note, the footprint. He listened intently, eyes flicking to the door, the floor, the window, like he was mapping out her final steps. When I mentioned the note that said, "Don't trust him," something flickered behind his calm expression. "Do you still have it?" I handed him the crumpled paper. He placed it in an evidence bag, nodding. "Any idea who she might have meant?" I shook my head. "No, Emma wasn't seeing anyone, at least, not that I knew of." Noah paused. "What about anyone you both knew?" I hesitated. There was one person, Liam Hayes, Emma's ex-boyfriend, and my ex too. The one connection we never liked to talk about. When Noah left, he promised to keep me updated. But that night, I noticed something strange. A black car parked across the street, engine off, lights dimmed. It stayed there for hours. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe a neighbor's friend, maybe an Uber driver on break. But when I stepped onto my balcony, the car's headlights blinked twice, almost like a signal, and then it drove off. That was the first night I realized someone was watching me. 2 days later, a message appeared on my phone. "No sender ID, just text. You're asking too many questions." My throat went dry. Then, another one. Seconds later, Emma's gone because of you. I wanted to tell Noah, but something in me hesitated. What if the warning in Emma's note, "Don't trust him," had been about him? Still, I couldn't stay silent. I needed answers, so I decided to find Liam. He lived 2 hours away in a cabin near Lake Marin. Emma had once called it the world's loneliest house. He'd been a photographer, a dreamer with too much quiet in his soul. The last time I saw him, he'd told me he was done with people. When I arrived, his car was parked out front, but the door was ajar. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of cedar and old film chemicals. There were photos pinned everywhere, landscapes, portraits, Emma smiling on a pier, her hair wind-tangled. My chest clenched. "Liam?" I called softly. No answer. Then, from the corner of the room, I saw movement, a shadow, and a low voice. "You shouldn't be here, Ava." I froze. He stepped into the light, eyes dark, tired, and wary. Liam Hayes looked like a ghost of himself, hollow cheeks, stubble, and exhaustion that went bone deep. "Where's Emma?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me almost pityingly. "You got her message too, didn't you?" I nodded. "She said she was coming to me, but she never did." Liam's jaw tightened. "Then it's already started." "What started?" He sighed. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me." He hesitated, then said quietly, "Emma was investigating someone. She found something she shouldn't have, and now they'll come for anyone close to her." I wanted to demand proof, but just then, a faint crunch echoed outside, the sound of tires on gravel. Liam moved fast, grabbing my arm. "You need to leave now." "Wait, who's out there?" But he was already shoving a USB drive into my hand. "If something happens to me, open this. It's all there." "Don't trust anyone, Ava, not even—" A gunshot cracked through the night. The window shattered. I screamed as Liam staggered, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming through his shirt. "Go!" he gasped. I ran. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so hard I dropped the keys twice. The rain had started again, heavy and relentless. I sped away, headlights slicing through the downpour. My heart pounding like it wanted to escape, only when I reached the main road did I dare to look in the mirror. The black car was back, following. Rain hammered the windshield so hard it blurred the world into streaks of silver. My wipers barely kept up, slicing through panic and darkness in rhythmic desperation. The black car behind me didn't lose distance. Every turn I took, every attempt to shake it, it followed. My breath came in shallow bursts. I didn't know who was inside or what they wanted, only that Emma had been right. Someone was watching me. When the next intersection came, I killed my headlights and swerved sharply into a side road, cutting the engine. I held my breath, crouched low. The black car sped past, its taillights bleeding red into the rain. I stayed there for a minute, two, long enough for my pulse to stop pounding in my ears. Then, with trembling fingers, I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. Liam's blood was still on it. Back home, I locked every door, drew every curtain. The clock read 2:17 a.m., and thunder rolled across the city again like an omen. My laptop hesitated when I inserted the drive, as if reluctant to wake whatever ghost lived inside it. A single folder appeared labeled Emma, Trust No One. Inside were photos, dozens of them. At first, they looked like random shots, streets, buildings, faces and crowds. But then I saw a pattern, the same black car, parked in different locations. The same man, dark suit, gray tie, always nearby. Sometimes beside Emma, sometimes in the background, blurred but unmistakable, and in one photo. I froze. He was standing with Detective Noah Keller. My stomach dropped. The warning in Emma's note echoed in my mind. Don't trust him. Had Noah been part of this? Was his kindness just another layer of control? I replayed every moment. The careful questions, his interest in the note, the flicker of emotion when I mentioned Liam. It all felt different now. And then I saw the last image, a grainy surveillance still. Timestamped 2 nights ago. It showed Emma, terrified, running through a parking lot. And right behind her, reaching out to grab her arm, was Noah Keller. I covered my mouth. A sob caught in my throat. My phone vibrated suddenly. Unknown number again. You shouldn't have opened it. I stared at the message, numb. Then another one. He knows. By morning, I had made up my mind. I couldn't go to the police, and Liam might be dying or worse. But there was one person who could help me understand what Emma had found, Dr. Helena Cross. She'd been Emma's research supervisor at the university years ago. A cryptography expert who'd once said Emma had a dangerous curiosity. I found her office tucked behind a row of ivy-covered buildings, the kind that always smelled faintly of paper and dust. When she opened the door, her face softened with recognition. "Ava Hart," she said. "Emma's friend. I hoped you'd come. You've heard?" Her expression darkened. "Yes, sit please." I sat, heart pounding. She closed the blinds before speaking again. "Emma came to me 3 weeks ago," she said quietly. "She thought someone inside the city's digital archive was altering records, birth certificates, death files, police reports. She said it tied back to a private security firm called Helix Corp." The name felt cold in my mouth. "What do they do?" "Officially? Cyber protection. Unofficially." Helena hesitated. "They make people disappear." I told her about the photos, the man in the gray tie, and Noah. Helena's expression didn't change, but her hands trembled slightly as she scribbled a note. "Liam was right to warn you," she said. "If you have that drive, they'll come for it. You need to disappear too, at least until I can decode what Emma found." I wanted to argue, but something in her tone, grim, urgent, made me nod. "Stay somewhere safe tonight," she said. "Somewhere no one would think to look." That somewhere ended up being my family's old cabin by the lake, abandoned for years but still standing. I packed quickly, clothes, food, laptop, the USB. As I drove out of the city, the air grew clearer, colder. Pines blurred past in long, dark lines, but halfway there, my headlights caught a glint of silver on the roadside. Another car, pulled halfway into the ditch. Someone was leaning against it. Waving, when I slowed, my heart nearly stopped. It was Noah Keller. He was drenched. Pale, one arm bleeding slightly. "Ava," he said, breathless. "Thank God, I've been trying to reach you." I kept my hands tight on the wheel. "You've been following me." "What?" "No, someone hacked my phone." He stopped when he saw my face. "You don't believe me." "Emma's last note said not to trust you," I said quietly. "And I saw the photo. You were chasing her." His eyes widened. "You've seen the files, so it's true?" "No," he said quickly. "That photo isn't what you think." I was trying to protect her. I hesitated. The rain was falling again, tapping the hood like impatient fingers. "Then explain," I said. He exhaled, looking genuinely pained. "I was part of Helix once, before I joined the police. I left after I realized what they were doing, creating false identities, erasing witnesses, rewriting pasts. Emma discovered old data I'd helped bury years ago. I tried to keep her safe. But she wouldn't stop digging. Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I didn't know how deep you were already in." His voice broke on the last word, raw and real enough to fracture my doubt. Still, fear rooted me in place. "How do I know you're not lying?" "Because if I were, you'd already be dead." He stepped back, hands raised. "If you want, go. Just don't go to the cabin. They'll expect that. Use this." He handed me a small folded paper, a map, hand-drawn, leading to an old ranger station deeper in the woods. "No one uses it anymore. Stay there until I find you." I took it hesitantly. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. For a moment, his eyes softened. "Because Emma loved you, and because I didn't save her when I had the chance." Before I could respond, headlights flared in the distance. He swore under his breath. "They're here, go." I hit the gas, tires screeching over wet asphalt. Through the rear mirror, I saw 2 black SUVs skid to a stop where Noah had been. Figures jumped out, guns drawn, and then I saw him turn, firing back. The sound of gunfire followed me down the winding road until the forest swallowed it whole. The ranger station was exactly as he'd said. Empty, half-collapsed, smelling of damp wood and rust. I barricaded the door and collapsed on the floor, exhausted. Every noise outside made me flinch. Every shadow felt alive. I opened the USB again, searching for anything new, anything I'd missed, and then I saw it. A hidden folder titled For Ava. My breath hitched. Inside was a video. Emma sat in what looked like a motel room. Her eyes were red, her hair damp, but her voice was steady. Ava, if you're seeing this, it means they found me. Helix isn't what it seems. They're not deleting records. They're replacing people. Identities, lives, memories, and Noah, if he's still alive, he's your only chance. Don't run from him. Run with him. I stared at the screen, tears spilling unchecked. The room felt suddenly colder. I'd been wrong about Noah, and now I had to find him before they did. I grabbed my jacket, slung the bag over my shoulder, and stepped into the rain. The world outside was silent except for the whisper of water through trees. Then a twig snapped behind me. I turned, slowly, heart hammering. Easy, a voice said. It was Noah, soaked, limping, but alive. Relief hit me like oxygen. I almost ran to him, almost forgot everything, until I saw movement behind him. A tall figure stepped from the shadows. Gray tie, cold eyes. The man from the photos, he raised a gun. Mr. Keller, he said. You should have stayed buried. The sound of the gun cocking snapped the night in half. Noah's hand went to his holster, but the man in the gray tie was faster. Don't, he said, his voice low, precise, dangerous. You won't get a second chance. I froze between them, my mind racing. The rain blurred everything. Faces, edges, even time itself. Somewhere in that chaos, I realized I was shaking, not from the cold, but from the weight of choice. Let her go, Noah said, voice strained. She's not part of this, the man smiled faintly. She became part of it the moment she opened that drive. He stepped closer, gun unwavering. Hand it over, Ms. Hart, and maybe you'll live long enough to forget what you saw. I swallowed hard, meeting Noah's eyes. They were pleading, no, calculating, as if silently telling me to trust him. I tightened my grip on my bag. You want it? Come take it, and then I ran. Branches clawed at my face as I tore through the trees, Noah shouting behind me, followed by the crack of gunfire. The forest erupted with noise, shouts, thunder, the bark of bullets splitting wood. I didn't look back until my lungs burned. When I finally did, I saw Noah behind me, limping, bleeding again. The gray-tied man was gone, swallowed by the night. I stumbled toward him. You're hit! It's fine, he rasped. We need to move. He guided me deeper into the woods until we reached an old hunting shack, half collapsed, barely standing. Inside, he slumped against the wall, breathing hard. I tore a strip from my sleeve and pressed it to his shoulder. You'll bleed out if we don't. I've had worse. Despite everything, the fear, the chaos, I found myself almost smiling. You're terrible at accepting help. And you're terrible at staying safe, he countered weakly. The moment hung there, fragile and absurdly human. Two fugitives, soaked and bleeding, clinging to dry humor in a storm of lies. When his breathing steadied, I pulled the USB from my pocket. Emma's last video said you were my only chance. He looked up sharply. She said that? I nodded, voice trembling. She said you were trying to protect her. That helix replaces people. He exhaled, a sound between pain and guilt. That's the truth. I used to help them do it. I waited, silent. He stared into the dark, rain dripping from his hair. It started as witness protection. We'd erase identities to save lives. But then they changed the rules, started replacing people who got in their way. Executives, journalists, anyone inconvenient. They'd vanish, and new records would appear. New faces, clean histories. It was perfect erasure. Emma found proof. She found me, he said quietly. And she wanted to bring it all down. He closed his eyes. They killed her for it. The words landed like stones in my chest. I wanted to deny them, to insist she was alive somewhere, but deep down I knew. Then we finish what she started, I said. He looked at me like I'd surprised him. That's suicide. Maybe, I said softly. But so is running. For the first time, he smiled, tired but real. You sound like her. Then let's make sure she didn't die for nothing. We spent the next few hours going through the files again, piecing together Emma's trail. There were code fragments, encrypted names, government tags. It wasn't just Helix, it was bigger. Noah leaned forward. Look here, Project Rebirth. It's not a cover-up. It's a full identity exchange network. They're creating replicas, fake citizens, clean backgrounds for people willing to pay, or for those they want to control. So Emma wasn't just exposing them. He nodded grimly. She was one of their test subjects. The air went thin. What? He met my eyes. She wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The real Emma Lewis died 5 years ago in a car crash. The one you knew was someone they rebuilt, memories, identity, everything. But she remembered pieces of her past and started looking for the truth. My head spun. No, that's impossible. I knew her. You knew the best parts of her, he said gently. The parts she refused to let them erase. I sank to the floor, hands trembling. The room seemed to tilt, the rain outside louder now. If what he said was true, Emma had been fighting to prove she was real, and she'd died for it. The storm eased by dawn. Mist curled over the ground, pale and quiet. I hadn't slept. Neither had Noah. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. We can end this tonight. I can get us into Helix's main server facility, but once we go in, there's no turning back. I looked at him, at the bruises on his face, the determination beneath his exhaustion, and I realized something that scared me more than Helix ever could. I was falling for him. It wasn't logical, wasn't even sane, but somewhere between the fear and the fire, he had become my anchor. I'm in, I said. We drove as the sun rose, a brief flicker of gold through the trees. The city loomed ahead, indifferent and immense. Helix's building sat near the river, glass and steel gleaming like a secret. We parked in an alley behind it, disguises thin but hope thinner. Inside, Noah moved like he'd been born there, silent, efficient, haunted by memory. Every door he unlocked seemed to cost him a piece of his soul. Finally, we reached the control room. The hum of servers filled the air. This is it, he said. Upload the files. Once they hit the public network, Helix burns. My fingers flew across the keyboard, heart hammering. It's working. Then a voice behind us. I knew she'd lead you back here. We turned. The man in the gray tie stood in the doorway, gun raised. His smile was almost kind. You should have stayed in the woods, Keller. Noah stepped forward, shielding me. She's not part of this. She's all of this, the man said. You think we picked Emma by accident? You think her memories were the only ones we touched? He looked straight at me, and something in his eyes made the world tilt again. What do you mean? I whispered. He smiled wider. You really don't remember, do you? I felt the blood drain from my face. Remember what? That you weren't her friend, Ava. You were her replacement. Time stopped. Noah's hand tightened on my arm, as if to steady me. But the floor might as well have vanished beneath us. The man continued, almost gently. You were part of the same project. Emma Hart was the original. You are the version we built to test memory transference. 2 lives. 1 shared code. You were never supposed to meet her. No. I whispered, shaking my head. That's not true. I have memories, my parents, my home. Fabricated, he said simply. All borrowed from her. Noah stepped forward, voice like steel. Enough. You should thank me, the man said. I gave you purpose. You gotta live her life. He raised the gun again. Now give me the drive. I couldn't think. Could barely breathe. Everything, every memory, every smile, every pain, suddenly felt fragile, artificial. But then I looked at Noah. The fear in his eyes wasn't disbelief. It was grief. He already knew. You knew? I whispered. He swallowed. I suspected. But you're not her, Ava. You're you. You chose differently. You feel differently. That's what makes you real, the man laughed. Touching, but meaningless. He aimed for me, and Noah moved first. The gunfire was deafening. I screamed as Noah lunged, tackling the man. They struggled, slammed against the console. Monitors cracked, sparks flew. I grabbed the laptop, hit send all. Files streamed, data flashing across the screen like fireflies. Then, one last gunshot. Silence. Noah collapsed beside me. The gray-tied man lay still, eyes glassy. I caught Noah as he fell. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading like ink. Stay with me, I begged. Please, Noah! He smiled faintly, blood on his lips. You did it. They can't erase the truth now. Tears blurred my vision. I can't lose you too. His hand found mine, weak but warm. You won't, just promise me you'll live, Ava, not as her, as you. His eyes fluttered shut. The alarms wailed. Red lights flashed. I clutched him, shaking, until the world blurred into smoke and sirens. I don't remember escaping. Just light, rain, chaos. When I came to, I was on the riverbank, dawn breaking gray and cold. The building burned behind me and Noah was gone. In my hand, the USB drive. Empty now, but still warm. The fire burned for hours. From across the river, I watched the Helix Tower collapse into smoke and screaming sirens. 1,000 erased lives finally set free in the clouds above it. I should have felt triumph, but all I felt was absence. Noah was gone. Emma was gone. And the person I thought I was, Ava Hart, had been a carefully written lie. Rain fell softly again, almost merciful now, washing soot and ash from my hands. I clutched the empty USB drive, its edges cutting into my palm, and whispered into the dawn, "You did it. Emma, you're free." For a long time, that was enough. The months that followed blurred into half-existence. I lived under another name, in a quiet coastal town where nobody asked questions. I rented a small room above a bakery, worked mornings serving coffee, evenings fixing computers, small, safe, unremarkable things. But every night I dreamed of two people, Emma, smiling through the rain, and Noah, whispering, "Live as you." Sometimes I'd wake thinking I heard his voice in the sea wind. Other times I'd almost convince myself he'd survived, that somehow he'd slipped through the fire like a ghost that refused to fade. Still, I kept my promise. I read. I wrote. I lived. But there are certain kinds of silence that never stop humming beneath the surface of your days. Silences shaped like unfinished goodbyes. It was mid-autumn when I saw him. Again. I was closing the cafe, wiping tables, when the bell above the door chimed softly. For a second, I didn't look up. Customers sometimes forgot their umbrellas. Then I heard his voice. "You still make the best coffee in town." My hands went still. Slowly, I turned. He stood there, alive, a little thinner, a faint scar along his jaw, eyes older, but unmistakably him. For a moment, my world folded inward. The lights blurred, the air caught in my chest. "Noah," I whispered. He smiled, gentle, hesitant, like someone afraid of breaking the moment. "Didn't think I'd find you this far south." I took a step toward him, then stopped. "I saw you die, almost," he said softly. "Kevlar, luck, and a river current that didn't want me yet." My throat closed. "You could have told me." "I couldn't risk leading them to you," he said. "Helix wasn't fully dead. I needed to finish it. And now? Now it's over." He looked around the little cafe, its soft lights, the smell of cinnamon, and exhaled like he hadn't breathed properly in years. "You made it out. You built a life, just like I hoped." I swallowed, trying to steady the storm inside me. "You came all this way just to tell me that?" He smiled faintly. "No. I came to ask if you still take your coffee with too much sugar." It wasn't a question about coffee. I laughed, small, broken, real. "Some things you can't erase." His eyes softened. "Good, because I've spent months remembering the things I never should have forgotten." We stood there in the quiet, surrounded by the hum of the coffee machines and the soft rain outside. For a long while, neither of us moved. Then, finally, I said it. The truth I hadn't dared to speak. "I don't know who I am, Noah. Not really." If what they said was true. He stepped closer, voice low but certain. "You're not their experiment anymore. You're the person who fought to live, who made choices they didn't script. You're real because you chose to be." Something in me cracked open at those words, like light spilling into a locked room. And then he reached for me. Slow, careful, as if asking permission. I nodded. The kiss wasn't cinematic, it wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Rain drummed against the windows, thunder whispered somewhere far away, and the world felt for once exactly as it should be. We sat together after closing, sharing silence and half-finished sentences. He told me about the investigation, how Helix had splintered, how Emma's data had exposed dozens of high-profile figures. "She saved more lives than she'll ever know," he said quietly. "So did you," I replied. He smiled, shaking his head. "Maybe, but I'd trade every victory just to have seen you smile again." I looked at him, truly looked at the weariness, the scars, the tenderness hidden behind guilt, and realized that somehow, Against every impossible odd, he'd become my truth, and maybe that was what Emma wanted. For both of us to remember that love, real love, is the one thing they could never fabricate. Weeks later, we drove to the lake together, the same one where Emma's story had begun and mine had fractured. The water was still, reflecting a sky full of low, drifting clouds. I tossed the empty USB drive into the water, watching the ripples spread. "Goodbye," I whispered. Noah slipped his hand into mine. "Not goodbye," he said softly, "just peace." The wind caught his hair, sunlight broke through the clouds, and for the first time since that night, the world didn't feel like a borrowed dream. I turned to him, my heart quiet and steady. "So what now?" He smiled. "Now? We live." And as we stood there, the storm finally ended, not outside, but inside. The rain faded. The air smelled of pine and second chances, and in that fragile stillness, I understood Emma's story had begun with a message. Mine began with a choice to live, to love, to remember, and to never let the world decide who I was again.